the limitations are mental limitations. They're psychological and emotional limitations about what it is we're allowing ourselves to see about the nature of the universe. Moray and I had a very nice little chat about this, that it is a game in many ways of perception, and you get the world that you perceive. If you keep perceiving it on one level, indeed you will get that world. And if you open that world up, which is the purpose of this entire conference, you will get a larger, infinite world. Okay, without further ado, I want to bring on Judy Wood and get down to some more brass tacks so we can progress our evolutionary thrust in today's afternoon. Judy Wood.
Hello. Well, what makes a scientist? The lab coat? Many folks have said that, well, she's not a scientist, she's not an engineer. Well, what makes an engineer? I have degrees that show it. I have a lot of experience that show that. But a lot of folks need an icon. They need somebody to look the position in order to take it seriously. So I'll go ahead and take these off, or maybe take me more seriously if I wore the coat. Let's see. Hey, you want to pull it off so I don't take off the...
How far do you want to go?
Yeah. There you go.
Most people don't realize that this lab coat originally came from, does anyone know? Madison Avenue. They decided that doctors will look more official and authoritative if they wore a white lab coat.
Thanks. Well, one thing that does make a scientist is a bag of evidence. This is evidence, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, where did the towers go? We assume where they went. But did anyone ever stop to think about that question? One thing about evidence is that it's there, it's truth. The evidence is always the truth. Assumptions are where you get off track. So let's start. Once upon a time, there were two buildings, two towers, and then they went away. Well, third tower and a fourth tower. This is all that was left. This is just that yellow corner of that building, and all that was left. To remind you what was there beforehand, and here's just that little corner is all that was left. This is the dawn of a new age. There exists some technology that can make a building of that size go away. It has the ability to direct energy in such a way to disrupt the molecular bonds. It's also, energy is direct as opposed to being kinetic energy. Kinetic energy like a wrecking ball or a missile or something solid. We're going to go through the data and see that you can eliminate about every kind of kinetic energy weapon. And we know this technology exists. The whole world saw it, even though they were told they saw something else. They saw what happened. And this indeed is a technology that can be used for free energy. It doesn't need to be used for evil purposes. Oops. Again, that's all that was left, just a story or two of that. And would you believe it, that 14 people survived in there? So what we're going to learn is that the towers didn't burn up, nor did they slam to the ground, but turned into dust in midair. That's not a collapse, that's dust squirting up. Why did so few people see that? Because they were told to see a collapse, maybe? There's three main things that keep people from seeing what's going on. Problem-solving skills, groupthink, peer pressure, and that they're terrified by the implications. We're going to just focus on the problem-solving aspect. If I tell you the answer is 27, am I right? Well, what's the question? What's the problem I'm solving? If you don't know the problem, how do you know if the answer is right or wrong? You first have to define a problem before you can solve it. And it can be referred to as a syntax error because the order matters. Like when doing this math, are you adding those numbers together first or multiplying these first? You'll end up with a different answer depending on how you group them. The same thing with crime solving or with problem solving. The order matters. So if you start out with a theory, we have thermite or we have bombs or we have airplanes or whatever theory someone has, and they take their pick from this list of things, and then they go cherry picking and searching for the data that's going to support their theory. So in essence, what they've done is determine the problem. But what happens if it was something else that they didn't take into consideration? They'll never get to the right answer. And that actually is one of the key things in a cover-up. You get people arguing about guesses, about assumptions about what the problem is, and they never look at the problem. If you don't look at the problem, you can't solve it. So what they're using is a theory to determine what happened. That's the wrong direction. We have to start out with what happened. You collect data, and the data always tells you what happened. And from that, you determine how it happened. But only after you first establish what happened can you determine how it happened. If you don't know what it is, you can't determine how it happened. For example, look at these beams falling with dust trailing behind them, opaque dust. Let's say you're going to impersonate one of those beams. So you cover yourself with dust and jump off the top of the building. From the ground up, would someone see that dust trailing off of you? No. You need more dust. Okay, let's say you get a couple of armloads of flour and eject it out as you're falling. Can you impersonate this? No, that's opaque dust. It initially blocked out all of the sunlight, 100% of the sunlight, so it was pitch black. It's very dense dust. And you come to the realization that these pieces of material are becoming dust. They're frothing up into dust as they fall. And they didn't hit the ground. But if you didn't know that these turn to dust, and you start out with an assumption, you wouldn't get to the right answer because do you know of anything that could turn a building to dust in midair? Something turned it to dust in midair. So it's important to first determine what happened, then how it happened, and only then who did it or why they did it. But again, we're just going to focus on what happened. The towers didn't slam to the ground. If they had slammed to the ground, there would be over 1 million tons of debris left stacked up in the ground. That didn't happen. Manhattan would have been flooded. Well, as we'll see, the towers were built in the Hudson River with a dike around them. If you slam 1 million tons of debris down onto the dike, you're going to break it. Didn't happen. And if you slammed 1 million tons of debris to the ground, it's going to make a thud. The seismic signals did not reflect that. Those are the three biggest issues, but there's a whole lot of others as well. But we'll focus on those initially. The lack of debris, the fact the bathtub wasn't damaged, and the low seismic recordings. There's all sorts of other things, and toasty cars, of course, is one of the favorite things. And then in the second part, I talk about other pieces of information, other data that shows more about what technology is involved. But remember, you first have to establish what happened. Lack of debris. Again, if over 1 million tons of debris slammed the ground, you'd see a pile of debris left over. All right, you go to work on a nice September morning. And there's Tower 1, there's Tower 2, and you work down here in Bankers Trust. So you're going to go into your office there in Bankers Trust, and then you're going to look out the window and see what you can see. Down here, you look out the window. What's it going to look like? That's looking out that window. Air-conditioned office, looking across the street, and whoops, where did the building go? This is right after 9/11. Tower 2 is basically missing. Tower 1 is missing over there. I think everyone would have to agree there's not enough stuff left piled up on the ground. So again, we were looking out there. Now we're going to look the other direction. And there's this main body goes missing. Just the north wing is left. The building just went missing. That's building 4. It was a 9-story building. So this is what was there beforehand, and it just basically all went away. And a satellite image shows, all sorts of holes that were in those buildings. The middle part of building 6 is gone. It looks like a post hole digger cored it out. You have holes over here on Liberty Street. Even some holes in Vesey Street. And notice again that north wing is remaining, but the main body's gone. And this is Bankers Trust, where you're looking out the window, seeing a non-building across the street. Few people talk about this building. It's a 22-story skyscraper. Well, it would be the tallest building in most small towns. It went away except for that last little corner. And building 7 over here as well. Every building with the WTC prefix was destroyed that day. So we're going to look at this direction. Now, a lot of people talk about hearing the BBC announce early that Building 7 went away. Well, CNN did the same thing for 1 Liberty Plaza, but it's still there. They just get excited and want to be the first to report. And we're going to go down and look on the ground and see what it looks like down in here. Looking at the front door of Tower 1. So here we are down on the ground. There's Tower 1, north and south walls. Ambulance that was parked in front of the front door of Tower 1. It doesn't look clobbered by anything. This picture, I believe, was taken on 9/11, later in the day. I don't see any big steel beams on the ground. There's aluminum cladding. The towers were built with steel columns on the outside that were covered with aluminum cladding. And you see the aluminum cladding. The ambulance looks pretty good. This was the day after 9/11. Peter Jennings in the studio. Do we have sound? Uh-oh. Well, what Peter Jennings is saying is, George, oh, you got it.
And have you been able to
Start again. This is
Stephanopoulos is down in Lower Manhattan today. George, I don't know if you heard a little earlier me raise this question, which was actually raised by ABC's Jackie Judd, as we look at these areas down below and the video of where the towers used to stand and where is all the rubble gone. And have you been able to, is there any way you can answer that question?
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get the question.
Okay, I apologize. Jackie Judd and several other people keep asking us, when you look at where the towers used to stand, there is surprisingly so little rubble. Where did all the rubble go?
It's a very good question, Peter, and I have asked some people who've been doing some of the rescue and recovery work this morning. If you look behind me, you can see the very remains, the skeletal remains of the World Trade Center. And one volunteer, Robert Gerlinski, explained to me the reason there's so little rubble is that all of it simply fell down into the ground and was pulverized, evaporated.
This is vital information. I really feel for George Stephanopoulos. He's got this job telling the world what's going on there, and that's the best he could do. And we humans tend to keep asking questions until we're given an answer. We don't stop to think if the answer makes sense. So what he is telling us is that it's obvious there's a big lack of material there. And here's an elevation map of what was left. And you see building 4 went missing, the holes in building 6. Here's a firefighter in stairwell B.
I heard this very, very loud noise above me. It was just a tremendous roar.
Right down here, while that picture was taken.
It was above, and it sounded like it was coming towards you, and then the wind, a very, very fierce wind, and my helmet, it started lifting me up off the ground, and so that's when I crouched down. The next thing I just crouched down. I got to the corner of the staircase by the railing, and I just got as small as I could possibly get. Because I'm not a big guy to begin with, so fortunately I'm not. So I got in and I literally, I guess the best way to describe it, I tried to crawl into my fire helmet. That's what I wanted to do, just to protect myself. And I wasn't sure what was going on. I thought the building might be coming down, and I figured, okay, this could be it, and I was a little angry. I said, so like, damn it, like, why me? Why, it's beautiful. I'm going to die in the World Trade Center on a beautiful summer morning. It's like a little denial and disbelief sets in, and so then I started getting hit with stuff. It was just debris was hitting me, and it went dark, and then the next thing was just total silence, nothing, no wind. No noise, no light, nothing. And then I started hearing noises. I started hearing like moaning, and guys were starting to communicate, yell out. These were the guys I was trapped with. They're calling out, who's there? You guys all right? Blah, 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 and this kind of thing. And I realized there was other people. I wasn't alone, Because when you're alone in a situation like that, it's like existential isolation. It's like, and then when you find out you're with other people, it makes you feel a lot better. Even though you're in a very bad situation, at least there's other people. But then the strangest thing happened. This beam of sunlight came right in on us, like about 8 inches long, but it was clearly sunlight. It was all dirty, full of debris, and it looked like pepper was floating around in it, sort of. But it was sunlight, and I'm like amazed now. It's a 110-story building above us, and I'm looking up at the sun.
He was right at the base of this building.
But when you came out, you had no idea where you were. There was no way to tell north, south, east, west. It was just the whole atmosphere was full of debris and papers and smoke, and there was no landmarks. There was no way to make a reference point. You couldn't see the sun anymore. The sun had gone away because the sunlight that had come in now was gone, and so there was no way to tell which way you were going.
He was at the base of this building while this picture was being taken. And all 14 of them walked out on their own steam. Let's see. Here again is where they were. Jay Jonas was one of the ones with them and said, I looked and said, guys, there used to be 106 floors above us, and now I'm seeing sunshine. There's nothing above us. That big building doesn't exist. Then later said, these are the biggest buildings in the world, and I didn't see one desk, one chair, one phone, nothing. Another survivor described walking out onto an empty football field. This is from the base here. This is what was there that went away. And that's where another 14 folks survived, in that little stub at the end of that first building I showed. And they had that hole in Building 6 where 50% approximately of Building 6 was missing. And the main body of Building 4 went missing.
Every time a floor hit another floor, it would not only make a noise, but it would cause tremendous vibration. So we're being bounced up and down off the floor, hearing this collapse coming closer and closer.
Mickey Cross was caught on the second floor.
My helmet started flying off my head. I had forgotten to snap my helmet. So I grabbed my helmet. I guess instinctually I just pulled myself down the corner.
The collapse of the North Tower created a massive rush of air.
I was blown down 6 stories down to the first floor, and all I could remember while I was being blown down was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. There wasn't any time to think about anything.
The 110-story tower disintegrated in just 10 seconds.
It was that fast, yet for me it was kind of slow motion too at the same time. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, oh shit, this is it, we didn't make it.
Faced with what seemed like certain death, the trapped firemen thought their last thoughts and prepared to die.
In those 10 seconds, I was like, well, I'm 33. What have I done with my life? Worked almost all the time. My wife is going to, be a widow now. And I pretty much saw myself. Pretty much saw my funeral. I saw everybody at the wake at my funeral, and my parents and family there.
You think about everything, I guess, that you haven't done in your life, and you realize that, is this it? Are you going to make it out of here? And I was just too young, and I have too much more to do with my life than for this to be it.
I thought I was going to be dead in a few seconds, and I remember feeling, I hope this is fast, because I had a fear of being trapped, like say with a broken back or severely injured, and still being conscious and alive.
It was strange, but I was at peace when the collapse actually started. I said, all right, whatever's going to happen now is going to happen, and I hope it doesn't hurt too much, but the fear was gone.
The collapse of the North Tower killed over 1,300 people trapped inside the building. But some of the concrete walls encasing Stairway B had remained intact, and enclosed within them, 14 people were still alive. As they opened their eyes, it seemed as if a miracle had happened.
I could hear Mike. I could hear him groaning. I could hear him called out to me. I called out to him, so I knew he was alive.
From the neck up, I seemed okay, but everything else was just like pins and needles. I mean, I was slapping my leg with I'm watching my arm hit my leg, but I can't feel it.
I had my flashlight on my side, and I looked at my hands and looked at myself to see if I was bleeding or anything anywhere.
When he heard noises around him, Captain Jay Jonas realized he too had somehow survived the disaster.
I wanted to know who was still alive. And I started calling them out by name.
All the people in their group survived. That's a nice happy ending. But the descriptions they gave were not of a building falling on top of them, were not of bombs exploding around them. It wasn't high heat. They didn't get cooked. They didn't get squashed. the building just turned to dust above them. So we're going to look now at what was left. If we go down below the ground in that corner, well, here's what it looked like. The building indeed, the main body went missing, just like it was sliced off there. So the mall is in the first story below ground. And there's some firefighters that were walking along there. We're going to go down one story and look at them. The perspective. Here they are. That's right under that area. It's a little bit punched in down here, but you can read innovation luggage, Hallmark cards, so you know right where they are. So now we're going to go a couple of stories below that to the loading docks. And it's right below there is where they're walking, but the loading docks look from up above. And it's painted purple under building 5, so you know where you are, and then green under building 4. So it's color-coded so the delivery trucks know where to unload. And we're going to look down that direction. Just after 9/11. Listen to the echo in this audio clip.
Going down to the parking garage. We're in quite deep.
These are the first pictures of search crews underneath the World Trade Center, desperately looking for survivors.
That's not a collapsed parking garage. That's not even a full parking garage. It's an empty parking garage. And we had this left. You can see remains of Tower 1. Stairwell B where those guys survived, and it's all at ground level. There was a lot of dirt brought in.
We were able to move 120 dump trucks out of the city last night, which will give you a sense of the work that was done overnight. So some of the debris has already been removed. More of it is being removed, and it'll be done by barge all throughout the day today.
Did you think it was going to get cleaned up in one day? Again, here's the ambulance picture and all that was left. Where's the debris of 1 million tons of building? One of the other survivors said this. We kept telling him we're in third floor, fourth floor, stairwell B, North Tower. Where are you? North Tower, stairwell B. Where are you? Stairwell B, North. Don't you know where North Tower is? They didn't know where the North Tower was because there's nothing left. And do you blame them? Here's right where those guys were, up in that little corner.
Hundreds more firemen were now arriving at the disaster area, but Captain J. Jonas's Mayday messages were still not getting through. Trapped down in the remains of Stairway B, there was nothing else Jay could do.
We realize we can't get ourselves out. And that's a big mental leap for a fireman to take, because we're so used to being the people who are going in to rescue someone. Now, the roles are reversed, and you realize you're helpless yourself.
But with the survivors buried alive beneath a debris field that extended over 16 acres, it seemed